Hello and welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. I'm your host, Dr. Jami Carlacio, coming to you from the Greater New Haven, Connecticut area. As a positive intelligence or PQ coach, I'm committed to helping people develop both emotional intelligence and mental fitness. That is, you'll come to regard problems as situations that help you learn and grow. PQ is a way of being and doing in the world that enables you to develop and sustain a positive relationship with yourself and others, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Please subscribe to this podcast and tap the like button so more people can enjoy the benefits of PQ. And now, here's the show. Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm very pleased to have my guest, Ruth Lamberty, and we are going to talk about language. And so I just want to give you a few words about Ruth. She's awesome. She's a coach and she does some work with adult prep. And so this is Ruth. She's the founding coach of Adult Prep, which is a hands-on coaching and facilitation firm with a focus on emotional well-being. Hence, she's on this podcast. She has a specialty certification in ADHD and executive functioning support, and she created the first of its kind program using evidence-based strategies to guide couples in creating their relationship blueprint for a long, happy life together. I think everyone could use that. Ruth also fuels her passion for leadership and confidence development by working and volunteering with mission-driven organizations where she helps shape programs for team engagement, community building, and self-focused initiatives. So to learn more about Ruth, you can go to adultprep.com, and I will have her information in the show notes. So stay tuned for that. And hello and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah. So, we talked about this a long time ago about the importance of language and why it's on the podcast and why it is connected to emotional and positive intelligence. And obviously, what we say to ourselves is often a big problem because if you're like me, I tend to go down the rabbit hole. Well, I don't anymore because I've had a lot of positive intelligence training and I consider myself always a constant learner. But emotional intelligence is all about self-awareness, and it's about being kind. It's about, really thinking about what you say to others, because what you say comes out of here and it's what you believe, and beliefs over time translate into behavior. So whether it's workplace conflict, relationship conflict, like the stuff you deal with and help people with, all of that really matters. I remember growing up, I internalized a lot of negative messages, and not only from society, but especially in my home life. And so I believed everything. And then I started believing it when it was my own voice telling me, like, oh, I can't believe you just did that. You are so dumb. You are so stupid. And as we talk about a positive intelligence, that's our judge. That's our judge saying, I can't believe that you just did this. And I call them ventriloquists because they sound like us, but they are not us. And so I want to talk about not only that, but I don't know about where you live, Ruth, but where I live, people have started putting yard signs up that say, please be kind. Mm-hmm. And I almost want to put one in my rear view window of my car because that's where people tailgate. And I would love it if people would stop tailgating. It's like, dude, I can't go any faster. I'm sorry, I'm going 80. Do you want to go 90 and kill somebody? But anyway, so please be kind. And I think a lot of us forget that what we say and what comes out of our mouth can be really unkind. So that's where I wanted to start the conversation off today.
Thank you. I agree. It's interesting. Everybody sort of has a different name for judge, as you call it. I sometimes use inner critic, but I also use just inner voice because it can be telling us positive things sometimes as well. And that's, I think, really what we want to talk about today is how to lean more into that positivity, right? And not to give the judge or the inner critic part of yourself all the power to take all your energy and use it towards something that's not helpful for you. In fact, it's probably harmful.
Right, right. And the word is power. That is the operative word, and words have power. And there's probably a million books out there that talk about it because it is so important. But, there are people who deal with workplace conflict, and there is, if something exists, it's because there's been a need for it. And so, what I want to do is, I want to talk to people about what kind of damage that can really do to us. Because, as I've always said on this podcast and in general, we are all beloved children of a loving and divine creator. And if that's the case, and I always also say God doesn't make junk, and I want to credit that to Alice McNutt Miller, who was a college friend of mine, and she said that, and it really stuck with me, that I'm not junk, and therefore any of those lies that I tell myself or that people tell me are not true. And
yeah, I love that, Alice. I might steal that too. Thank you, Alice. What's her name? Thank you, Alice.
Yes,
I love that.
I'll have to send this to her. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting, Jami, how just human nature is that we are the least compassionate with ourselves? I feel like you would be more compassionate, or a human would be more compassionate to the person tailgating them, even though you want them off your tush of your car, than you would be for yourself in a similar situation. And I think that that is the biggest lesson I've learned throughout my time coaching, right? I haven't been a coach my whole career. I switched careers midstream, and that for me was the biggest game changer. We should have just as much compassion for ourselves as we do for a stranger on the street that you want to give $1 to, or a granola bar if they need it, or a handshake or a hug. And we just do not take I won't even say time. I think we don't take the energy. We don't spend the energy on ourselves. And when we talk more today about the language you can use for that, I hope that people will find it really helpful to be able to turn that compassion inward a little bit.
Right. And one of the things I've learned in my own journey of sort of self-discovery and self-awareness is about my identity. I'm not a disease. I'm not a mental illness. I'm not a job title. I'm just Jami, and I happen to do these other things. And I was listening to Tony Robbins yesterday, and he's pretty amazing. And obviously, he speaks to a lot of people's hearts and minds. And he was saying that in his company, and his wife is very powerful and very influential too, they kind of have a rule. And one of them is don't gossip. And I don't know, I think my mic is doing something weird, so I apologize if people can hear some feedback. But it's like, if you have something to say about somebody, bring them into the room. And the other thing is calling in versus calling out. So if there is something going on, speak your truth, but you don't have to speak it unkindly. You can say, wow, that really landed on me in a way that hurt, and this is what I heard. And yeah, maybe give people the benefit of the doubt if there really is a benefit of the doubt to be given. But otherwise, try, and just going back to the car thing, when people are desperate to get around me, I try to get out of their way. It's like, okay, well, you clearly need to be somewhere or whatever, so I'm just going to get out of your way and let you go on. Or I try to let people in the lane that they need to get into, because it's no skin off my teeth to be nice.
Right. I love that. And, I always, just to add to that, in this, we're talking a lot about cars, but I always like to say to myself, well, there might be an emergency, right? Give them the benefit of the doubt in that way as well. We'd have no idea what's going on in their brains, in their cars, in their households. And so I would rather think that they really need to get around me rather than they just are being a little bit jerky on purpose, because I can choose to think I'm never going to meet them. I can choose to think whatever I want about the situation.
Right. And one of the things I used to really be victim to or subject to road rage. And I also gave that up. And one of the things that I started doing was blessing people. And so I would just give them a blessing so that they would be safe and not get in a wreck. But what it did is it changed my feelings. and it just softened everything. So just blessing people meant that I was in the mode of kindness and compassion and not in the mode of judging. And again, our judge is huge. My judge, I always think of my judge as big as the Lincoln Memorial, but I've learned to silence the judge, or say, recognize it, put the judge in a corner, and then move to the sage. So one of them is empathy, right? The first sage power is empathy. And going back to what you said, which is so important in terms of how we have less compassion for ourselves than we do with others. And so, what I've also learned to do is look at the self at a particular age where something touched me, whether it was a pain point when I was 5 or 8 or 12. And I give compassion to that part of me. And that helps me grow, just loving myself and saying, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you made a mistake. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You just are a human being. You're a spiritual being in a human body.
Yeah, I love that. I also love that, when you talk about that you bless people, you're taking an action first and sort of hoping, at least I assume when you started, hoping the emotion, the feeling would follow. And that often happens. We even with something as tough as depression, sometimes you have to take the action for the emotion and the feeling to follow. And, I think that's a really good rule to live by, especially if you are having trouble changing the thought pattern, right? Just with your internal monologue, that can be really hard. So take the action, take a values-based action for you. Blessing the people that are driving around you can make, it sounds like it made a really big difference for you.
It did. It made a huge difference. It just made my drive that much nicer. And I also learned that if I'm in a hurry, it's probably my fault because I left too late. And so leave earlier, or call ahead and say I'm going to be a couple minutes late, or simply, as positive intelligence teaches us, get in the moment. Start breathing, noticing your fingertips, noticing the lines in the road, but quit thinking about stuff that hasn't happened yet or stuff that has happened a long time ago, because the past doesn't equal the present and the future hasn't even happened yet. So again, using emotional intelligence, it's the self-awareness, it's being in the present, it's being mindful, right? Being mindful.
Yeah, mindfulness, just that awareness in general, I find also super helpful, because if you're not aware of what's going on, you can't do anything about it, either externally or in your own mind. You can't do anything to change in a positive way if you're not aware of what's going on. So I think mindfulness is a great first step for that as well.
Right. And I've talked about this before, but when you're in a situation where you have to be in groups and make a decision, a collective decision, first of all, there is no such thing as an emotion-free decision. So again, being aware of the emotions, being aware of this, desire to judge other people who don't think like you, and consider that some of what they have to say is good or valuable, even if not all of it, or you don't find all of it valuable. And affirming people is so much nicer and better than cutting them down.
Yeah, including yourself, right? Why, again, I go back to it. I'm a big proponent of this. Why give that that piece of you, that compassion, to someone else and not yourself? I noticed you said, if you're late getting somewhere, you just recognize that next time you got to leave earlier. I didn't hear you say at this point in your life that you're beating yourself up for it because you can't go back in time. I mean, it'd be very cool if you could, but I'm guessing you don't have a time machine, so you can't go backwards, just like we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't necessarily predict the future. And so why beat yourself up about something that's already happened? You're going to instead take that energy and learn from it and leave earlier next time, hopefully, so you don't feel that rush again.
Yeah, and I'm taking dance lessons, and it's a half-hour drive, and it's up 95. So anyone on the East Coast knows that I-95 can be a real bear, and if you're on the West Coast, I-5 can be a bear too. So you know that you can never decide whether there's going to be traffic, or whether there's going to be an accident, or whether there's going to be road work. So I always have to take into account that it may be a half-hour drive, but I don't know what's going to happen along the way. And one day I was going to be a few minutes late, and I was panicking because I only have a 45-minute lesson. And they have lessons one after the other, so that would cut into my time. But it also is a courtesy to the people waiting for me who say, yeah, she's coming at 3:15. And if I'm not there, they're wondering if I'm going to show up because they could have given that slot to somebody else. So I called and I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a few minutes late. And when they saw me, they said, thank you so much for calling. They said, thank you, because we would have been wondering where you were. And now we don't have to wonder, and you're here, and let's get going.
Yeah. So taking that 30 seconds to give them a heads up also sort of extended that compassion. And my guess is it probably made you feel better about being late because you weren't anxious that they were going to be anxious that you weren't there yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I love that you're taking dance lessons. Is it a particular kind of dance or a variety?
Yes, I'm going to the Arthur Murray Dance Studio in Guilford, Connecticut, and I've been plugging them because they support the podcast. And I've been doing tango, East and West Coast swing, foxtrot, waltz, and I have a routine that I've been doing with my instructor, and we're actually having it professionally video recorded and edited. And unfortunately, I'm going to be doing it to a song that's under copyright, so I can't post it because it'll get taken down. But for those of you who know who Shakira is, the song is called Te Aviso, Te Anuncio, and it is about a woman whose boyfriend is starting to look at another woman, and she's a little ticked off. And so, based on the music video, my instructor and I developed a routine. We choreographed it, and we're going to be doing a video of it probably next week. And I'm really excited because if you've ever watched professional dancers, they make it look so easy, and it is so not easy.
Yeah. Well, I love that for you. You just, folks that are listening and not watching can't necessarily see this. They might be able to hear it in your voice, but you just lit up when you talked about it. And that's the best. We should all have something like that in our lives.
Yeah. And that also, I think, goes to how I talk to myself and treat myself. Instead of thinking, oh, I don't want to do it, or I won't be any good at it. I said, I'm going to do it because I love dancing. And I'm doing it without a partner. I show up to the dance lessons and we all trade partners. So it doesn't matter if you came with somebody or came by yourself. We're all there learning. And yes, I've stepped on a few feet and a few feet have stepped on me. And actually, we just laugh about it. We're like, okay, next time I'm going to wear different shoes.
It's great, self-care. And I know we're not talking, I don't want to go too far into that. We're not talking about it today, but this is a great example of self-care. That's not just, I think a lot of people still think of self-care as getting a massage or getting your nails done. It's also just taking care of your needs, whatever they might be. And this brings you excitement and joy. And that's a really important part of self-care. And I love that for you.
And it's infectious, right? It's infectious. So whatever I do to care about myself is going to bleed out. And likewise, if I'm in a morose state of mind or a negative state of mind, it shows up outside of me, and it shows up in my words, it shows up in my speech, and then that puts people off, right? It breaks the connection. And the thing is, because we are language users, language is all about making meaning. So what happens is an experience we have, but we translate it into words and into language, whether we verbalize it or not. And then that translates into how we see the world. I love Wayne Dyer, and he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it isn't just what you see, but how you talk about it. And again, it goes right back to language.
What do you think, Jami, is there are a lot of important pieces, but if you had to narrow it down to one thing, what do you think is the most important piece of a healthy monologue, whether it be internal or external?
I think self-forgiveness. I think we're all slightly perfectionists. Maybe there's a continuum. Some of us are way on the other end, and I was certainly one of those people. And it's certainly one of the saboteurs in the 10 saboteurs of positive intelligence. A perfectionist, or a stickler, as it's called, is somebody who has really high standards. And oftentimes I will hear perfectionists say, well, I have high standards for myself, but not other people. And I'm thinking, but if you've got these high standards and you hold them up here for yourself, it's a little bit of hubris, because you're thinking that you need to achieve this higher level, but other people don't because maybe they can't. And so I think for me, it's self-forgiveness. It's when I make a mistake, when I say something unkind, when I have a knee-jerk reaction. The judge says, you're so terrible, you said that thing. The sage says, okay, so go make it right. You know, yeah, you're imperfect, you're going to say stuff like that.
That perspective on perfectionism, I hadn't heard before, and I really like that. I always think of something like perfectionism as a value that we are inflating into a demand on ourselves, rather than looking at what the value, what are we missing in terms of the value piece, what drives us, what motivates us, that we are then inflating it into a demand. And it's a lot easier to demand things of ourselves than others.
And the other thing I learned just along the continuum of life is that, hold on, I think I just lost my thought, but it's, I have to love myself, and the way I talk to myself is going to be the way I talk to other people. So if I can show myself kindness, and if I can love myself, I can love other people. And it took me a long time to understand that if I have this habit of judging and criticizing and, you know, evaluating negatively myself, then ultimately, whether it's verbalized or not, I'm doing that to other people. And then that cuts me off. So ultimately, when I think of emotional and positive intelligence, I think of connection. And I want to be connected to people, not disconnected.
Sounds like you do that a lot through authenticity as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think, you know, that's what people value, right? We just want to be real. And the other thing I learned is, if you're trying to be a perfectionist and you use perfectionist language, people are like, I don't want to be around that person because I definitely fall short, and I don't want to really find out, you know, that person thinks I'm whatever.
Yeah, it's a shame. I see it a lot in the working world with my clients that, you know, are having difficulty at work. Is you are not the person next to you. You are not your manager. You are you. And it's good to have goals, but also to realize and hold healthy boundaries. And that's, again, both internal and external. And, you know, I agree. If someone can be authentically them, you know, it's very hard. And it sort of goes back to that awareness piece. For me, I feel, again, lots of important parts of this, you know, language piece. But if you're able to pause and choose, so you have to be aware of what's going on and pause and say, instead of telling myself this, or instead of telling that person this, it's a better choice. It's a more values-based choice to do this, to say this. That is so good. And people are go, all day, every day, so overscheduled and so many things. And that affects our minds as well. Then our minds are go all day. And then a lot of people can't sleep because their head hits the pillow and their brain's going, oh, you don't have anything to do? We're going to think all the things. So pausing. Yeah. So I think for me, you know, that extra uber important piece is the ability to pause, to be aware, so that you can make the best choice for yourself in the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard. Yeah.
It is, yeah. So we're talking like it's some easy thing to do, but it is not. It takes practice and intentionality and really just showing up to life. You know,
Yeah.
showing up Go ahead. I feel like you're going to say something.
No, I was going to ask actually, do you ever, there's an exercise, I don't do it as much anymore because I've been able to pull it, in internally, but there's an exercise I used to do and I still recommend to certain clients that are having trouble having that conversation with themselves, which I think, as we've discussed, is important in order for you to be able to have that conversation with others, to take that language external. Are there any exercises that you do or did that allow you sort of to get that distance from your judge?
Yeah, well, with positive intelligence, we learn to intercept.
Okay.
And you can't intercept something you're not aware of. So, the very first thing we teach in positive intelligence is who are the saboteurs? And then how do they function in your life? And there's usually a top one. And for me, it was stickler. And the second one was people pleaser. And of course, the judge is just trumps everything. But what I learned is A, that they exist, B, that they're not me, and C, I can stop them anytime I want by moving right into the present. So we talk about the PQ gym, and the PQ gym is simply exercising that muscle, that sage muscle. And to do that, you can just right away go into whatever sensory thing you want, whether it's touching, seeing, listening. I was doing some PQ reps this morning and I was practicing sound. So the idea is listen, whether it's the listening of the voice of the person you're speaking with, their timbre, their tone, their accent, or for me, I was sitting in my room meditating, and so I was listening to birds chirp. And I was trying to figure out, well, which bird is that? And I wonder what they're saying to each other right now. And so that's something I do. And that has helped immeasurably identifying and then stopping them because, as I say, there's these two neural pathways. And if we can stop them at the juncture, you don't have to go down the rabbit hole anymore. You can say, I'm going to have empathy and compassion, or I'm going to explore, like, why am I having this feeling right now? Why am I having this reaction? So
Yeah.
those are some things I do.
I love that. I'm learning so much from you. I do something similarly in the ways of talking yourself through it, whatever is happening. I have a character to my inner critic, my inner voice. Similar, I mean, your judge, and I think it's different for everybody. Mine is from the '80s movie Gremlins.
Oh,
You
yeah.
remember this movie? Okay, so I chose the gremlin because he is this adorable alien Furby creature until, I hope this is not a spoiler, it has been, 40 years, but, until, well, thank you. It's a good thing I look so young. No, I'm just kidding. um, I choose the gremlin because my hope is that if I'm compassionate with the gremlin, he can turn back into Gizmo. He can turn back into his adorable, not slimy, icky version of himself. So what I do is I put my hand out so I can actually picture him, and I put the gremlin on my hand and I talk to him. And the first thing I always say, as silly as it might sound to people, I think it's really important to thank your brain, because whatever is coming up for a reason. So I say, thank you, Gremlin, for trying to protect me, because that's what he's doing. Don't ask me why my inner critic is a man, but it is. So I say thank you for trying to protect me from whatever that fear is or the uncertainty. And right now is not the best time for this. I'm not ignoring you, right? Because if we ignore them, they just come back stronger. What we resist persists, as they say. And so I try to be kind and compassionate with him. That's sometimes hard to do for myself. And my hope is that he'll turn into Gizmo and I can pull it back in and move on to something else. And when he shows back up again, I just do the same thing and get stronger. I feel like every time at quieting him down a little bit faster.
Yes, you have described positive intelligence and emotional intelligence. You just use a few different words, but it's the same thing. And I love, 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 and it is so true. I agree with you. Saying hello. Yes, hello. And I've talked about this with Buddhist philosophy. Mara is this kind of ghosty, bad figure that tried to tempt the Buddha when he was in becoming enlightened, And Buddha said, Buddha was busy meditating and becoming enlightened. And he just said, I see you, Mara. I see you. That's okay. I see you. And
Yeah.
it is right. Acknowledge it is there. And I love that you can say thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, it might seem silly to some people, but I think that just really quiets that voice for me. So it enables me, you say your judge is not you, right? So it enables me to sort of take back over and make those informed choices that keep me happier and healthier and enable me to then use that language externally as well, as you were mentioning, and have that compassion for others, and to also be honest in a kind way, as you mentioned earlier as well. It helps you to be a little clearer.
Yep, exactly. We are already out of time. I try to keep this podcast to a half an hour just because people are often not in the car for that long if you're listening, or if you're watching on YouTube. You're thinking, oh, I don't have an hour to do this. I'd rather watch a crime thriller at night, which is what I do. But yeah, so I want to. Do you want to leave us with a positive word or two?
Sure. Yeah, I actually have something on my computer screen that I've been leaning into lately. It's not exactly an affirmation, it's just something that it can be just something that works for me. And I'm going to read it to you because I have a screen over here. It says, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And so I think it's just an important reminder that our language can also be an action, right? And to express that externally via an action is a very healthy way to live through and achieve your goals.
Yeah, it's all about integrity. Do what you say you're going to do, unless it's mean, and then maybe do the opposite.
Yeah.
You say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong when I think I'm weak.
That's our show. Thank you again, Ruth. Thank you all for listening or watching, and we will see you at the PQ Gym.
Thank you so much.